Hey gang, it's Paul with Setpack. Welcome back to the channel. I'm sitting on the beam that we installed in our previous video. It's the very next day, and our goal today is to prep this wall for the installation of that beam, which is over 18 feet long. But this morning I got in here and I did a couple things first. Number one, I wanted to get the roof load put back on our beam. So I built this post here with this little kick out to support the strong back. So that's nice and solid. And then the other thing I did was I built this ladder. I typically do this on projects like this, so we have easy access to the attic and we don't have to use the pull down attic stair that's in the back of the house on this project. And this will make it a lot easier for my electrician and other trades just to walk right up here safely and do their work and then come on down. So the rungs are a foot apart, just like a standard ladder. These go well above the beam, so you have something to hang on to while you're climbing over. And check this out. That's an approved top step. So let me climb down this ladder and get you guys caught up on the ground. Alrighty guys, I'm back on the ground. I watched the video this morning of this beam install and we realized that we told you everything about that beam but how long it was. So this beam is 12 foot 8 inches long and the span inside the opening is 11 foot 10 and a half. So I'm going to walk over here. This is our temporary support wall for our cathedral ceiling. Same process, nailed on the short top plates, used my laser to align the bottom plate. And this floor is kind of slick. I didn't want this moving. So I just nailed it to this wood floor. Remember, this wood goes away and this tile goes away. Everything gets a brand new floor. So we didn't have to worry about putting a nail in it. Got a little temporary support block here under the faux beam. And all that's left over here is to build a little wall in the foyer to support the foyer ceiling. One more wall here on the cathedral ceiling. And we have to support this rafter. And this wall can go away. You ready to get it done, bud?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, our cathedral ceiling is completely supported on this side. We've got our foyer ceiling supported over here. And of course, our roof load is supported back there. So let's take this 40-year-old load-bearing wall and get it out of here. Hey gang, it's the next day at our project. Yesterday you saw us build this temporary wall which is holding up our cathedral ceiling rafters and this wall which is holding up the foyer rafters in preparation to rip out this little wall here and to put in this 18-foot long beam. After we did that, Jordan and I realized that the plans call for the original wall for the foyer that ended right here. It actually called for that to remain, but we decided that really should go because we're moving all these walls and opening this up. What sense does it make to have that little 10-inch wall sticking out right here? So we made the executive decision to pull it out. It's gonna look much better to have a clean corner right here. But in doing so, we saw that this wire, this cable, came through this hole and was feeding receptacles on that end of this wall, either in the foyer or the bedroom, and I'm going to show you why here in a second. So we went to our electrical survey that we did at the beginning of the project. I knew it was circuit 19. I turned it off, and then I measured from the outside wall to this receptacle, and from the outside wall to the bedroom receptacle on the other side. The bedroom receptacle was closer to that corner, so I figured that wire probably hits the bedroom receptacle first, and it did. I cut this hole here, went around into the bedroom, had to move the bed. I pulled the receptacle out, clean, didn't cut any wires, pulled the wire out, and then I simply pulled it out of this hole and coiled it up right there. And the reason we don't cut wires is now I have to reroute this, and it's gonna have to go up with a junction box in the attic. And this will just make it. But if I had cut it, I'd be short and not have a problem. So always leave the wires as long as you can. So the reason we had to move the wire was because now it's in the way of our stud pack and our two kings. They originally were sitting out here and we were fine. But now that we moved it back, that wire was in the way. So it had to be moved. I suppose you could have notched everything in the back and tucked it in there, but that's not the stud pack way, is it?
Nope.
Nope. So we're gonna do it right and reroute that wire. So that's ready right there. And let me show you what else we found. We talked previously about this roof load, and we saw two roof braces that were coming down from above the foyer onto this wall. So just two cuts with the saw. We swung them back. So now they're sitting on our temporary wall. So that was easy. Now the whole roof is being supported here and here. Now the next thing we got to do has to do with these faux beams. Now one of the owners is not home. She's been in Texas for 2 weeks, but she's been watching the progress on the YouTube channel, and she's been reading your comments. So we got the word this morning that she wants these beams removed. So we appreciate the extra work, guys. Thanks a lot. Actually, it's gonna make our project a little easier with those beams out of our way. So we're gonna remove our braces and pull these beams down, cut that drywall, and resupport that rafter. So now that you know the owners are reading your comments, you know what to do. Well, now we have our work cut out for us. Let's get this little wall down, and let's get these faux beams out of here. All right, the beams are down. Doesn't that look so much better? They came down very easily, as you saw. These two put up kind of a fight, and I'll have a little patch to do. But the beams are at the street. Hopefully they're gone by sundown, and hopefully we get a new subscriber. So our next step is to finally cut these rafter tails. Now on this one, you saw that we just popped a line. On this one, we're going high tech. We've got our laser set up on our Hupar mount with the fine adjust. This thing works great on a situation like this where we're trying to dial it in on this end and that end about 18 feet away. On this end, we're lined up on the pencil mark. That was our existing wall. You can see the other one right here on the other side. And on the far end, it's lined up with the left-hand side of that stud. I just got to get suited up in my PPE, and we're going to follow the line with our circular saw. There's 18 of them, and then we're going to reset the laser and do the ceiling over the foyer. I'm excited. Let's get it done. All right, we're all cleaned up from getting those rafter tails cut off. Got that nice, beautiful beam pocket ready to lift this beam into place. You also saw us tear down this little section of wall here that was remaining. That was because we had intended to bring the beams right through the front door, but I wasn't sure we could make the turn, so we stretched out our tape 20 foot long, the length of the beams, and tried to make the turn, and we couldn't. So then we tried it from the back door, and we were able to make the turn and get them in here. And it was actually closer for us anyway, because the beams are by the carport.
It was pretty easy.
Yep. And we got a little bit of a late start on this project today. Early this morning, I had to go to our bathroom remodel. I got a call last night that the stone guys were going to install this morning. I had to beat them there and remove that old vanity and get it prepped and ready for them. When they pulled up, they recognized me from the YouTube channel. That was kind of cool. They watch it. They love it. That was awesome. And they did a great job on the installation. We can't wait to show it to you. So a big shout out to Menzie Stone. But right now over here on this project, the sun is going down. It's late on a Friday. We are out of gas. And we're going to put up this beam tomorrow. There's a few details we have to go over with you first to prep this beam, so we'll see you then. Hey gang, it's the next afternoon. It's actually a Saturday. Beautiful day here in southern Louisiana, and there's nothing more that Jordan and I would rather do on a Saturday than what?
Hang a beam.
Hang a 300-pound beam. So our first step is to put these king studs in so that we can get our measurement. On this king stud right here, you can see up here, we have this 2x6 rafter that's holding up the ceiling in this bedroom. We can't cut it, so we simply notched the king. And it won't affect the function of this king stud at all. So I'm really ready to nail that off according to the drawings to ensure composite action in these two studs. If you have any questions about some of the terms we use, make sure you go back and check out the video from yesterday, the beam behind Jordan. We go into a lot more detail on a lot of the terms we're using, the size of the fasteners and all that. So we're just gonna nail these in place instead of on the ground. Alrighty gang, I know we said we were going to nail it in place, but we realized we need to nail from this side also for composite action. So we took it down, we did that on the floor, put it back up. So now it's done. And now we can pull a measurement from the face of this king stud to the face of that beam and cut these beams to length. Yep. All right, the two beams are cut to length, but now we have to fix them, and let me show you what I mean by that. Both of these beams showed up with a pretty bad cup in them. Here's two of our drops. Check this out. You see that? Pretty unusual, so instead of sending them back and then waiting another week for two more beams and hoping that they're flat, we're just gonna fix these. We already tried it outside and it's gonna work just fine. So we're gonna do it this way. We're gonna get this in flush, put in our row of screws here. I brought some C-clamps. We're going to clamp this in together and put in those screws. And that's going to pull these things flat. Then we can put this beam up. So let's get our screws and our chalk line and fix these beams and make them one solid unit. All right, gang, that worked great. They're nice and flat now. Take a look at that, Jordan. And the other thing we need to mention is we always cut off a factory end. We never rely on the factory end being square. We actually didn't do that up there, but we got lucky, but we made sure we did it on this one. Now, the other issue with these is this top one is wider than the bottom one. It's about 1/4 inch here, but it's worse on the other end. We have this side flush, but this side needs to be flush too. The bottom of the beam has to be flush because it gets drywall, and the top of the beam has to get flush because we're gonna have braces and a ceiling on it. So now that we have the line pop, let's rip that off, Jordan. The circular saw got most of it off. We still have a little bit of a lip, which is fine. I'm just gonna make a couple of quick passes with the planer, get rid of that. And then right here, you can also see this one's sticking out a little bit. I'm gonna clean that up too, so when we slide it in, we won't have any issues. Maybe a little overkill for an LVL, using a planer on it, but it just takes a minute and it'll ensure better results when we start framing up that ceiling. All right, we have this planed off and flush as best we can. Remember, it's not fine woodworking, but we do want it as close as we can get it on both sides. Now there's one more thing we can do before this beam is ready to hoist up there, as far as this beam is concerned, and that is we got to deal with this hanger. Now this beam currently is upside down. It's going to hang on this hanger off of this beam. I want this surface and the bottom of this beam flush. Without this bracket in the way, it'll make drywall a lot easier. We could scoop out the back of the drywall. We're going to go over that when we actually drywall this. But this will be easier to recess this bracket. We're just going to do it with the planer, so let's get it done. All right, check this out. So there's our notch, and you can see how nice that drywall is just going to go right over the top of that, and we won't even know that hanger is there. So now this beam is ready to hoist. All we have to do now is figure out how we're going to do it. As far as lifting this beam into place, there are a lot of ways to do it, but you got to do it safely. It's a beautiful Saturday. We want to get this thing lifted into place, so we're going to go outside, build our structure right here, and lift this thing straight up. So let's go outside and get that frame in here and get this beam into place. Alrighty guys, that beam is up 300 pounds, 8 feet in the air. It went pretty good. Now, unfortunately, we couldn't film it a lot. We didn't film it more than we did because I was up there, Jordan was down here. We had to be on our game. So let me walk you through what we did. This is our lifting rig we made out of the repurposed 2x6 ceiling joists from the dining room. They're about 15 feet long. Just let them run wild into the attic, longer than we needed. Then they're secured to these two temporary walls at the bottom with this 2x4, and they're secured right here so the bottoms don't kick out. This one right here is secured to this temporary wall, and this one, so that one's very strong, and this one is screwed to our roof rafters. So this thing is very solid, very impressed the way it worked. So you saw we had the beam sitting on the sawhorses. We were hoping that gave us enough extra height where we wouldn't have to reset the come along, but we did. So when the beam was sitting on the sawhorses, we attached our lifting strap, attached the come along, and located our spot to drill a hole through these posts for a pipe. So the pipe went through these posts, and the top hook on the come along hooked on that pipe. 1/2-inch steel pipe, plenty strong enough. So once we were set, slowly started to lift, and I should say that we had our stud pack ready, we had our anchors ready, our drill, our hammers, so we're not looking for anything. So I was standing up there on the rafters. I lifted it as high as we could go. We were about, what, that short, Jordan?
Yeah.
So Jordan put in this block, and he put in the king stud, and I lowered the beam.
I put a block on the king stud.
That's right. You put a block over there on the king. Mm-hmm. And then I set it down, readjusted my straps, and then started to lift it all the way. Now this beam had a little bow in it as well. So it was hard for us to get it into that beam cavity we made. So we started on this end where it was the tightest. You can see how nice that looks with these cathedral ceiling rafters on the left and the dining room and the foyer ceiling on the right. See how tight that is? So we got that in there. And then as we headed this way, Now that bow is out here and it needed to go this way, tight against these rafters. So I measured from this brace to our mark, and we cut a 2x4 just a little bit longer than that, jammed it against our brace, and drove it right here. And as we drove it, it pushed this beam tight against the rafters.
And it was really easy.
It was.
Yeah.
So since we lifted the beam from the center, we could adjust it easily this way. So we got over here, made this flush, these two beams, and we anchored the beams together with that bracket. Once this end was secure, I hopped back up in the attic and I lowered the hoist and I set that end down on top of our stud pack. So our goal today was to get the beam up, which we did, but we also wanted to get this ceiling supported on the beam and get this wall out of here. Unfortunately, the time just got away from us. We'd rather work smart and safe than fast and dangerous, right?
Right.
All right, gang, we're gonna take down our frame, all our braces, clean up in here, make it spotless like we always do. Be sure to go check out our website, studpack.com. We have a new shipment of t-shirts. They're super comfortable, and we have some of the larger sizes available now. We think they're gonna go fast. Please go check that out and get your t-shirt as soon as you can. Be sure to smash that like button for us, ask a question, leave us a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and we will see you on the next one.